Hey, what's up everybody? I must preface this video by saying that by July, I will have been watching The Twilight Zone for a solid 10 years. It's probably my favorite show of all time, and one that I never minded investing a lot of time in. Back in the day, I used to watch this show whenever it came on TV, which was usually July 4th or New Year's Day. I used to actually buy blank tapes and then wait for one of those days so they'd show the marathons and I could see every episode. There were a lot of episodes that they never really showed on TV though, and I can see why. Because although the show was excellent, there were also a few bad episodes here and there. So I now present to you the top 5 worst episodes of The Twilight Zone. Picking horrible episodes was a lot harder than my last video where I listed the 5 best, because honestly, there really aren't that many bad episodes in this show. Not a lot of television shows are like The Twilight Zone, and I feel that through the whole series, the producers focused on quality, not quantity. That being said, just by the sheer number of episodes there are in the show, there are always bound to be some terrible ones, if only in a small percentage. I must point out that for this video, I completely disregarded any episode from Season 4 of the show. For any of you out there who don't know this, the show was forced during Season 4 to air hour-long episodes. Many of the scripts written to be episodes were counting on them to be a half hour, so many episodes were terrible because of this. They were elongated to fit the hour-long model and usually just kind of dragged on. But it really wasn't the show's fault that they had to do that, so I can't blame them for having to change the way they did the show that season. I will, however, mention that the majority of the episodes I'm listing do come from Season 5 of the show. By the time the show was in its final season, Rod Serling had pretty much left the show to go teaching at a university, and really only came back to film his narrations to those episodes. Therefore, his influence in the show was greatly diminished and a lot of crappy episodes were aired. But I'm digressing here. Let's get on with the countdown. Number 5, Once Upon a Time. This episode aired in Season 3 of the show and had the once popular silent film star Buster Keaton as the main character. The show starts out with him being employed as a janitor in the 1890s, completely dissatisfied with the backwater town he lived in. He manages to steal a time helmet from his boss, who's a scientist, and travels to 1960. Immediately, he realizes the future is terrible, but now his helmet is broken, and with the help of an engineer he meets, they both try to get it fixed. I really can't stand this episode due to the fact that from the beginning to the end, it's trying to be so funny but fails nonetheless. Maybe 1960s audiences loved Buster Keaton, but I found his slapstick comedy style to be redundant and boring as hell. From the 20s until the 60s, there had been some kind of cultural fascination with life in the 1890s, and as a younger viewer, I guess I don't feel the same kind of enthusiasm. Then again, I find myself idolizing the 50s and 60s whenever I watch this show, so I guess I can understand it. Still, this episode didn't make me laugh, the sci-fi aspect was really weak, and the writing just wasn't there. Number 4, Come Wander With Me. This episode always baffled me when I first saw it, but upon seeing it again, I realized the reason it confused me was due to the fact that it's a prime example of horrible writing. The story is essentially about an annoying rockabilly guy named Floyd Burney who travels to a middle-of-nowhere rural town looking for a song to buy the rights to. He finds a woman in the woods playing a song on guitar and offers to buy it from her, but she acts really strangely and says it isn't for sale. Then Floyd gets attacked by one of the male townsfolk and kills him in defense. The woman continues playing the song, detailing in the lyrics that Floyd will be killed, and so he runs away. While he's being chased by the man's 2 brothers, the woman appears to him and tells him to stay this time, but he ignores her and ends up getting shot. Now, what I really don't get about this episode is that nothing is ever explained at the end of it. I think they were hoping people would be so intrigued by how weird the story was that they wouldn't care if it didn't make any sense. Number 3, I Am the Night, Color Me Black. This episode is about a man set to be hanged for the murder of a bigot, and there is speculation as to whether he's actually guilty. On the day he is executed, the sun doesn't rise at all. Now, this is mainly a dialogue-based episode written by Serling, who is trying to show how hate can ruin entire communities and also completely blind people. While I like the fact that Serling wrote a script that was deeply symbolic and thought-provoking, the episode itself is just kind of boring. I attribute it to bad acting and bad directing, but some of the script is really heavy, and with mediocre actors, the end result is that the lines sound really cornball. Number 2, Mr. Bevis. You might have noticed that a lot of episodes on this list usually include horribly written characters that are hard for anyone to relate to. This episode is certainly no exception. Mr. Bevis is about a goofy idiot who plays zither music, has a shitty car, a lousy job, and a disrespectful landlord. All in the same day, he's fired and is evicted, so his guardian angel comes down to help him out. To make a long story short, the angel gives him a glimpse of what his life could be like, successful career and brand new car, but Mr. Bevis rejects this because he'd rather be himself in his own shitty life. Though I agree with the moral of the story, that is to say, it's better to be an individual and have a harder life than it is to be successful and conform to society, I understand and appreciate that message. But the episode's attempts at comedy are just so cornball, and the timing is always off. Plus, an episode that features someone's guardian angel just doesn't seem to fit into the dark tone of the show. I do give Sterling credit for trying to make a lighthearted episode, but it was pretty damn awful in the end. And the worst episode of The Twilight Zone that I've ever seen is What's in the Box? Why do I hate this episode, you may ask? For 3 reasons. The story is generic, the characters are hard to take and unrelatable, and the plot makes absolutely no sense. The story is essentially about a bickering old couple in New York City who need their TV fixed, so a repairman from the Twilight Zone takes care of it. Seeing himself killing his wife on TV, the main character gets upset and tells his wife that he's been cheating on her with another woman. She starts to taunt him, and then he attacks her and kills her by accident. As he's being taken away by police, the TV repairman shows up and asks if he'll recommend him to others. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with this episode. The first reason it's hard to watch is due to the 2 main characters. These are the people who you see on the street causing a scene by arguing in public and not even caring. Why I'd want to revisit people like this on TV is news to me. Every other line of this episode includes one person bickering about the other for the full half hour. Now, besides having to deal with 2 a-holes for characters, we have a plot that I still rack my brain trying to figure out. The repairman is supposedly from the Twilight Zone and fixes the set so the couple will see their future. Now, besides poetic justice, why would this representative of the Twilight Zone want these people dead? Because they're annoying? That's really not good enough reason. The fact that the couple are killed simply because they entered the Twilight Zone sounds like a really lazy way of ending the story without explaining anything. While the premonitions of the future are shown in this episode, it hangs onto the sci-fi genre by a thread, and seems more like a badly penned drama written by an inexperienced adolescent. Well, that's all for my list. I thank you for watching, and don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe.